What's going on, everybody? Bros and Beers here on a Monday night. Going to give you some waiver wire ads for the Week 11 fantasy football. Give you 8 players this week, starting with Audric Estime. Plays for the Denver Broncos. He's currently owned in 7% of sleeper leagues, and this past week he played in 45% of the snaps, which actually led the team. In second place, that was Javonte Williams with only 29% of snaps. Sean Payton was encouraged with this performance and said he will continue to get more reps. He did only get 5.3 points this past week, 14 rushes for 53 yards. Was against a good run defense, but the fact that Javonte Williams didn't play much and Estime, it looks like he's taking over the backfield, is a great sign. If you're in a fab league, I would spend up to 30% of your remaining fab on him. And if you have a number one waiver and you need a running back, I would definitely use your number one waiver on him. Next week they play against the Atlanta Falcons, which is not a bad matchup. So if you have a couple running backs on bye, you got a couple injuries, he's somebody that I would definitely pick up and maybe start. It just depends what your team looks like. In general, when it comes to waivers, please comment questions that you have. We are live on YouTube right now, and you can, and we'll try to respond. Next up on the list, though, is Ricky Pearsall for the 49ers. He's owned in 56% of sleeper leagues, and this past week he played in 64% of the snaps. He did have 17.3 points, which is awesome. Looks like he's going to be the third wide receiver in San Francisco, but Debo and Juwan Jennings are always hurt, so he's a great safety blanket. He is also a rookie who didn't play a lot this year because of an injury, so hopefully he is starting to ramp things up more, and his snap percentage should be increasing every week, especially because he looks great. He was a number one draft pick this past year. They're not going to spend a high draft capital like that and not play him. He was tied for third with 6 targets on the team, was tied with CMC. This offense is on the field enough for them to potentially have 5 fantasy relevant players, and he could overtake Jennings real fast as the number 2 wide receiver with Brandon Ayuk being out. If you're in a fab league, I would use 20 to 25% of your fab, and he's definitely worth a number one waiver claim if you need a wide receiver. Plays Seattle next week, which is not a bad matchup either. If you need a wide receiver, please go pick up Ricky Pearsall. Third on the list is Adonai Mitchell for the Indianapolis Colts. He's only owned in 17% of sleeper leagues, and this past week he played 94% of the snaps. He had 13.1 points. He was third on the team in targets with 6. 4 of his 6 catches were more than 10 yards. Flacco seems to be the guy for the rest of the year with Richardson getting benched, which means that Mitchell will most likely be a give or take low-end flex play, but he's got massive upside. If you are in a fab league, I would spend give or take 15% of your remaining fab, or actually I would even say of your starting fab. Throw some money at this guy. And if you need a wide receiver, he's worth a number one waiver claim. Plays against the Jets next week, though, so not a great matchup, but I don't think Sauce Gardner will be guarding him often, which is great for him. So yeah, I would start him in my flex next week as long as Flacco is still the starter. The fourth player on the list is not a great option. There's just not a lot of running backs unless there's huge injuries. It's Cam Akers for the Minnesota Vikings. It looks like Aaron Jones will be okay, but he hurt his ribs this past week, and if he misses some time, Cam Akers will at least start. It's not a great option. We've seen what he's done. He's been around long enough that he's just an okay running back, but if he gets volume, he can catch the ball, and maybe he gets a goal line touchdown. He's owned in 20% of the sleeper leagues. He played 31% of the snaps for only 5.7 points. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on him, but if you have an extra bench spot or maybe you've got a couple extra defenses, it's worth picking him up just in case if Jones misses time or he gets re-hurt. Jones has always been banged up, and he's getting a little older. He does play Tennessee this next week, which is not a great matchup. But if you've got people on bye, Jones ends up missing time, you could start him as a flex. Fifth player on the list is Tyjae Spears. He's owned in 45% of sleeper leagues. He played 46% of the snaps. He had 8.1 points this past week. It's one of the worst offenses in the league, but if he's healthy, he could add a little bit of value in PPR. Maybe be a flex, low-end RB2, high-end RB3. Last year he was electric. He just never got a lot of touches. This past week he had 3 catches for 4 yards, but he averaged 6.71 yards on the ground against a really good Chargers defense. If you're in a fab league, I'd spend maybe 10% of it, of your fab. Not worth spending them on waiver claim. I would wait to see if somebody doesn't pick him up and then just pick him up tomorrow morning, which would be Wednesday morning. He plays against the Vikings next week, which isn't a great matchup. They're one of the better run defenses in the league, but he can do a lot of the work in the air anyways. Number 6 on the list is Rashad Bateman. He's owned in 32% of sleeper leagues. This past week he played 78% of the snaps. He had 17.1 points, led the team in targets with 8. It's looking like if defenses are going to key on Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, it could leave a lot more openings for Bateman. He was a former first-round pick, so he has the pedigree to be a solid number 2 option. Well, maybe number 2 option on a real team. But for fantasy, he's looking like a wide receiver 3 or a flex. In a fab league, I would spend, give or take, 15% and a lower waiver. You know, if you're 10 through 12. Otherwise, I would just wait to see if nobody picks him up. He also plays Pittsburgh next week, which is not a great matchup. So there's our running backs and wide receivers that I would add for the week. If you need a quarterback, there's 2 options really. Justin Herbert, who's only owned in 55% of sleeper leagues. He had 21.76 points in a 6-point per passing touchdown league. He did complete 78% of his passes, so he's looking to be really efficient. 9.1 yards per attempt, which was 5th in the whole NFL. 5 red zone attempts, which is nice to see from a running offense. Only 164 yards, but that's because they run the ball 2 out of 3 times, it seems like. Not going to throw 30 times a game. Basically a bye week replacement or a super flex quarterback 2. Play Cincinnati next week, which is a wonderful matchup. I'm starting him in a couple super flex leagues, and if I had a quarterback on bye and there's not a lot of great options in one quarterback leagues, pick him up. The second quarterback I would say to add is Bo Nix. He is owned in 44% of sleeper leagues. This past week, he had 20.1 points. He completed 73% of his passes, had 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's a great ball manager in the sense that he's only thrown 6 interceptions all year, and he's looking like he's getting better every week. Starting to get a hang of the offense. Sean Payton loved him going into the draft, so it's great to see that he's coming along. Same thing as Herbert, though. He's a good bye week replacement, super flex option, and he does play Atlanta next week, which is not a bad matchup. Like always, if you have any questions, please comment on our videos. If you're in the live chat, comment any questions you have and we'll answer them. We post TikTok and Instagram every once in a while. TikTok more often. Comment on there, like on there. If you subscribe to any of our channels, you'll get notifications when we go live and when we post videos. Our socials are going to be Discord, Twitch, X, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We do have a Discord channel, which you can post on there. We post our rankings, and we just talk football. It's a great channel to be a part of. We're all pretty friendly. But yeah, like always, have a good night, everyone, and we will see you next time.